Hello, my name is Josh Hawley, and I am originally from the USA. I was born in Wyoming. I now live in Mauritius. It's a small island off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. I live here with my wife and son. Today I'm going to speak about the fallacy of Hinduism, or the fallacy of the word Hindu in relationship to what is practiced by millions of Indians in India and millions of people worldwide. The religion known as the Vedic religion. Today is Sunday, November 7th, 2010. I am continually surprised and amazed whenever I meet supposedly educated Pandits and Brahmins who know the Vedic mantras and the different yagyas and samskaras, but who are simultaneously grossly ignorant of the origin of the concept of the word Hindu. I met a very famous Pandit the other day. He's very famous on the island of Mauritius. He's well known amongst the population of Mauritius. He's recognized by the Mauritius government. He meets with the Prime Minister of Mauritius. And he was speaking about our Hindu Dharma. This idea of Hindu Dharma is a gross fallacy. And the fact that it's being perpetuated by the Pandits and Brahmins of India is a testament to the power and efficacy of the subjugation of India, first by the Mughals and then by the British, and now by rampant materialism. The first Muslim invaders who ransacked India came upon the modern-day Indus River. This is a well-researched fact. In those days, this river was also sometimes known as the River Sindh. The Arabic-speaking Muslims could not properly pronounce the word Indus, and so they simply called the people on the other side of this river as Hindus. So this is the label that the Muslim invaders gave to the population living on the other side of the River Sindh, or Indus River. And subsequently all of the population who practiced that religion on that side of the, or that culture on that side of the River Sindh, became known as Hindus over a approximate 750-year history. This label Hindu was perpetuated for nearly 800 years of Muslim ransacking and rule. Muslims would go into Vedic temples and smash the deities, take the deities out of the temples, and use those deities as marble flooring in their mosques. So that is an example of ransacking the Vedic culture. What to speak of stealing all of the jewelry and the diamonds and the wealth out of the temples, because traditionally the wealth was offered to the deity and was kept in favor of the deity. In other words, everything belongs to God, so everything is kept for and by God. But the Muslims would take it for themselves. This labeling of the whole population of India as Hindu was further perpetuated and in a sense perfected by the British, who enlisted the help of scholars like Maximilian and other Sanskrit scholars to actively mistranslate the Vedas in favor of the European view of Christianity. In other words, the European worldview that Christianity is the center of the world, and the biblical concept, Abrahamic concept, that the world was created some 7,000 years ago. This mistranslated version of the Vedic Shastras was then systematically taught in all educational institutions throughout India as the system of Hindu Dharma, and continues to this day. The Pandits are taught that the Hindu Shastras, which is a misnomer, the word Hindu never appears in any Vedic literature. Upon careful examination of the Vedic Shastras, Puranas, Upanishads, Itihasas, Tantras, we find no mention of the word Hindu anywhere throughout. Indeed, the only proper terms to identify the culture of ancient India, Bharat Varsh, the land known as Bharat, is Varnashram Dharma or Sanatan Dharma. These words are found in the Vedic literatures themselves. To say that one is a Hindu, in my estimation, is an admission that one is a subjugated, and conquered individual. In other words, you're making an admission that your culture has been destroyed by declaring yourself to be a Hindu, because you're saying that you have been subjugated by Muslims. Because nowhere in the Vedic Shastras will you find the word Hindu. And to accept the word Hindu is an acceptance of being a subjugated person. Subjugated first by the Muslims, and then by the British, and now by Western media. And you're being slaughtered. Hindus are being slaughtered by Western media. The mentality. The idea that the Vedic Shastras are mythical or made up is wholly ridiculous and entirely contradicts the very supposition of an absolute platform from which religion is supposed to be based. I have had numerous discussions with men who claim to be Hindus, but they do not believe that the Shastras are representative of actual historical events. They take them as myths only. If that's the case, there's no absolute basis for which this religion is based, and it's a complete fallacy and worthless. However, the Vedic religion teaches us differently, that this religion is Sanatan Dharma, and it's not simply a religion, it's a culture. It's a dynamic culture. Varnashram Dharma covers material and spiritual aspects of life. Sanatan means eternal, and Dharma means the intrinsic nature of something. So the intrinsic nature of the self is eternal. And that activity of the eternal activity of the self is the actual religion of the soul, and that is relevant to every single individual who has taken birth on this planet, and throughout the universe for that matter. Further evidence of the Vedic culture is found throughout the world. In Russia, there is what is known as the Russian Veda. In Europe, the Scandinavian countries are known as such due to the Kshatriyas who live there. They worship the demigod of war known as Skanda or Kartikeya, thus Scandinavia. In Brazil have been found the deity form of Hanuman. In Greece, the ancient worship of Rodha and Christos, Radha Krishna, thus the island of Rhodes or Rhoda, etc., etc. Not to mention the countless number of verbal histories handed down throughout numerous indigenous cultures throughout the world that correlate to the Vedic Shastras, Puranas, Itihasas, etc. The Puranas or histories of Bharat describe that all people are coming from India or Bharat Varsh. The Puranas describe the whole planet as Bharat Varsh or Dweep, Jumbo Dweep, an island. A planet is known as an island according to the Vedic Shastras, an island floating in the ocean of the universe or the ocean of space. So originally the entire planet was under Vedic culture, and this is evidenced all over, as I mentioned previously. The Africans, according to Bhavishya Puran, the Africans were forced out of Bharat for their unscrupulous habits of theft, etc. The Egyptians left India because they were worshipping the sun as the supreme. The Yavans or Turks are mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam and were eventually driven out of India for their failure to properly follow the Vedic injunctions. And Lord Parashuram, who's known as Dash Avatar, one of Dash Avatar, is known to drive out the Kshatriyas or the Europeans some 21 times, so they fled to Europe. From the Vedic literature, we find mention of all the races currently occupying the planet. And this is before modern anthropology. These Vedic literatures were written prior to the study of modern anthropology. The Vedic literatures describe that all races are descending from the land of Bharat, having descended from various rishis, and have originally belonged to the great Vedic culture, which was the culture of the entire planet, one planetary culture. It is an accepted fact that linguists recognize the root of all languages as Sanskrit. However, nowadays, in our highly politicized and ignorantly divided world, there is little room for this truth, and it's an unfortunate fact. For indeed, if the light of the truth of the Veda reaches the mass of mankind in its actual form, the whole of humanity will be united and liberated from its blind destruction, being led by useless politicians and money-grubbing businessmen. Thank you for taking the time to listen.